Hey everyone, welcome to Princess K. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to One Piece, episode 1078. So last time, the war has ended. The war for Onigashima and just the war for Wano is over. And we're just kind of dealing with the aftermath now. Everyone's just kind of, celebrating that it's over. Everyone's celebrating that they've completed the mission, that Kaido and Big Mom have been defeated. And in the end, we're moving on. And one of the big things with that is at the very end of the last episode, the Akazaya 9 are about to present the new shogun of Wano to the citizens of the Flower Capital and everyone else who just happens to be there at the moment for the Fire Festival. And as we know, that's Momo. They're not going to recognize him right away, of course, but we're ready to move on to a new era. And just see how everyone else deals with all of this, how everything else is handled, yada yada. Because we are basically in the post arc at this point. If you want to count it as such, I am, but now we just have to see how long this goes on for, and if there's a small filler before we get to the next major arc. I don't know what to expect, honestly. I don't know where everything is going. Like I've said in the past, I only know like little details that I've been spoiled on, but out of context and everything. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm excited though. I'm excited to see how this closes out. I'm excited to see how the next arc opens up. And I'm excited for a new stage because we've been in Wano for a long time. And for those who have been watching, weekly, before I had been, even longer. Because Wano was already going when I came into it. I was still catching up at that time. And so, this is going to be the first arc probably since I started reacting to this, and actually definitely since I started reacting to this. But the first arc in a long time that I'm actually beginning to watch as it airs. I think I might have started to watch Dressrosa when it was first airing, but then that's when I think I got started to get behind. No. I think maybe it was Zoe. Maybe it was Zoe that I started to get behind on. I don't know. It's been so long. I think it might have been Zoe because I think that's where I picked up when I started reacting. I think I started picking up right there because that's where I had left off when I had stopped watching for a while. So I think it was Zoe. I believe I did start Zoe when it first started airing, but I didn't I didn't complete it at the time. I think. Trying to remember all that from all that time ago is, not easy for me. um but yeah, this is gonna be really cool to see a new arc, especially for the final saga as it starts to air. If there is a little filler between Wano and the next arc, I won't be surprised by that. I just hope it's at least good. Either way, we'll get to see Jinbei like fully part of the crew and traveling with them now. So that's going to be really fun. Plus, we also have to end up seeing just everyone's reactions to this because this is going to be a big deal. Luffy's obviously going to get a bounty upgrade. I'm interested to see what people like around the world think about the fact that Luffy has defeated two emperors. Technically, I mean, technically, he personally only defeated one. The other was defeated by Law and Kid. But you know he's going to take the mass of credit for this. It's going to be seen as his raid, um, his act against Wano and against the government are going to believe it's against them. Um, that's how they're going to see it. Even though, again, it wasn't just him, but the others are going to be seen as like working for him, and they probably wouldn't like that. And the reason for this we already found out in this arc. It's because of the true nature of Luffy's devil fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. Because of that devil fruit, and because as the Elder Stars were saying, it's like one of the most dangerous devil fruits out there. Luffy is going to be watched over, and any action he takes, any victory he claims, is going to be, at this point, heavily focused on him. To the point where, like, no matter who else is part of it, he's going to take the brunt of the credit. It's ironic, actually, because you look back at like the earlier parts of this series where Luffy couldn't get the credit to save his life. Remember Alabasta? No. Smoker was given the credit for that, and he hated it. He acknowledged that was not him, and he didn't believe he should have been given the credit for that. But they weren't going to admit that Luffy took out one of the 7 warlords, right? And now, look at how the tables have turned. Luffy is the one who's going to be getting all of the credit for everything because of the revelation of his devil fruit's true nature and how fucking insane it is. So it's taken kind of a complete 180 since then. And it's interesting to see that, like, actually play out in the story. So Luffy's definitely going to get the massive bounty raise. Others will too. Like Kid and Law, of course they're going to get a bounty raise. Zoro, definitely. Other members of the Straw Hats, more than likely. But Luffy's is going to be the big one, for sure. He's going to get his big bounty raise, and it's going to put the world on notice at this point. That's why we're heading into the final saga. In fact, I would not be surprised if the world government started sending people after him more and more, if that's what, became a more constant threat. We're going to see how it all goes, though. I'm excited for what's to come, and I'm hoping that it ends up really just delving into some awesome stuff. However, I think it's about time we get this episode started. We start with this reaction. So, let's do so. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So for the past couple episodes or so, I've been talking about, like, when the Wano proper for the arc would end, and when the post-Wano would begin. And I've been, like, talking about, like, oh, maybe it's this episode because the fight's over and everything. But no. This was the final episode of Wano proper. Like, that's unquestionable. Momo's speech declaring an end to the war and declaring the future of Wano, with him as the new shogun, is 100% the closure of everything. Again, like I said in the reaction, everything that had been set in motion since Punk Hazard, since we first met Kinemon and Momo. This entire time, pretty much the entirety of the post-time skip, minus Fishman Island and Return to Shabandi, has been setting up for this exact moment. The moment that Momo would take his place as Shogun of Wano. The moment that the war would be declared over, that Kaido and Orochi's reign would be declared over. This is the true end to the arc proper. This is where we move into the future. And the celebrations can truly begin. Momo's declaration here is exactly what we needed to close this out. And it was a phenomenal speech. Everything he said was about the state of Wano and how he wasn't going to let those kind of evils remain. The evils of slavery and the poisoning of the waters and land. And he made a big show of his return, and honestly, it was needed. Like, some people might say, like, oh, there was no need for this big showy performance of sorts, and that it just makes you look conceited and whatnot. But no, after everything this country's been through, they needed a show. They needed something to show them that Wano was going to be safe from here on out. That Kaido and Orochi were fully defeated and weren't going to be an issue any longer. That this 20 years of terror, of pain, of sorrow, of death was over. They needed that to be delivered in a showy way. And on top of that, Momo earned that. With everything he did to help, with everything that he did to rally troops at different points throughout this arc, and his work to, stop Onigashima from destroying the Flower Capital, he deserves to be a little showy here. He deserves to be, like, very focused on like this. It doesn't feel conceited at all. It doesn't feel like it doesn't actually feel like he's showing off per se. It feels like he's taking his rightful place on the throne of on the throne of Wano, not Onigashima. And that he's truly here for Wano to save the country. It's making a statement. It's being a little showy. But that's because he's trying to let the entirety of this country know that they are now safe. That they don't have to worry about all the pain they've suffered for these past 2 decades. So, I think it's pretty fitting. We also had a couple other things in this episode, such as delving into a little bit more of Tama's backstory, including how she and Tengu met, and just continuing to show how much of a hell she had been born and raised into. We saw, like, the moment her parents died and her reaction to that. We saw how she had to force herself to stay strong despite, starving and not being able to sell any of her hats and anything. We saw just her break down at Momo taking control of the country, because it meant that the promise made to her about making this country a place where she can eat as much as she likes, that Luffy kept that promise. That she is free and safe, and that she's no longer going to have to worry about being hungry, about the pain and suffering she's gone through in her young life. And it's a really good way to show that with specifically her. Like, yeah, you could show that with Toko and all too, but we've seen a lot with how Toko has gone through it. And Tama's thorough line of this was honestly the more focused on one, even though I like Toko more, and feel for Toko more and everything. It's like Tama's been kind of the thorough line that all of this started with, really. Tama was one of the first people that Luffy ever met on Wano. Like, not counting the samurai who came with him to Wano, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's like, it makes sense that this would be the thorough line, and her breaking down is a good sign. It shows that she's overjoyed and overwhelmed with emotion at finally being free. And you see that as well in Nami's reaction as she holds Tama, just comforting her and smiling, knowing exactly why this girl is crying and everything she's gone through and everything that this means to her. And we see everyone celebrating in Onigashima and all around Wano. We see a lot going on in this episode, even though not much technically happens. We also see Yamato declare that he's going to join the crew, and the others are basically like, okay, can we are we good with that? And Jinbei's basically just like, yeah, well, we have to check in with the captain. It's his choice, which is completely fair and true. But I said it during the reaction. I'm saying it again here. He's not joining the crew. At least not yet. If he does join the crew, it'll be later on, but he has to be there for Wano right now. And if he's truly following in Oden's footsteps, he'll know that he has to remain behind in order to protect and raise up this country. That's what Oden would do. And you could say till you're blue in the face, but Oden left. He ran away and hitched a ride on Whitebeard's ship and everything. It's like, yes, he did. But he did that at a point where Wano was, in relative peace. Oden would never have left if Wano was in the state that it's in currently at that time. It's made very clear that Oden cared deeply for this country. And he would never put it in active danger if he knew that he was needed to protect it. And again, I think that Yamato is going to know this as well. And as much as he wants to join the crew, and as much as he even plans to at the moment, it's very clear to me that he's not going to. He's going to stay behind. He's going to protect Wano. But I do think that he could join in the future. Sort of like a Jinbei situation where it's like, oh, I'll join you, but just not right now. I have something to do first. Jinbei first said he was going to join the crew back in Fishman Island, but he had some things to take care of before he could. And then he eventually finally joined officially in Whole Cake, but had to stay behind again to take care of his former crew. Finally, becoming like an active duty member of the crew in Wano, like right before the raid on Onigashima. So Jinbei's journey to becoming a member of the crew has been long. And while we are about to enter the final saga, like, Yamato probably wouldn't join the crew until a good amount of time later on. Definitely before, like, the final arc and everything, I feel. Unless maybe he comes in during the final arc. But I think he very much could join the crew in the future. It's just not going to happen yet. Wano has too much to do to rebuild, and he's going to need to stay there. And he's going to know that. But now we just go into the post-Wano stuff. So we're going to have our feast, our banquet that we set up for during the toast scene earlier on in the before the raid on Onigashima. We're going to have just probably some big stuff with the bounties and all, like I mentioned. There's going to be a good amount going on in this post arc. Maybe some more revelations and whatnot. That's very possible. I'm excited. I'm very excited to see where this goes next. Because this has just been setting up some really great stuff, and now we get to move into a completely new act of this series, the final act, the final saga of this series. Again, there might be a filler arc in there, but I don't think it'll be a long one. I don't think it's going to be like super long. So yeah, and either way, we still have to finish out the rest of this post-Wano stuff anyway, so we've still got time. I'm excited to see where this goes next, and definitely going to continue on the journey with you guys. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode of One Piece, and for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.